Hopefully you enjoy it.
Hopefully.
Hey, welcome back, tennis fans. Here we go. It is now the semi-finals. The quarterfinals are all complete, and we've got somebody in this podcast, there's only two of us, that had a very good men's bracket, didn't they, JG?
Yep, it's 100%. I can't say that too often, but I got 100% correct on the men's semi-finals. On the top, we have Carlitos and Daniel Medvedev. On the bottom, Djokovic and the surprise Ben Shelton, which I had in my bracket. I think we're in store for two epic semi-finals. I can't wait to see how they play out. If you're looking at the top, though, initially, I'm not as excited for the Alcaraz-Medvedev because of the matchups in the past and the fact that Alcaraz has always beaten him really convincingly. However, on the other half, Shelton is an entity in which Djokovic has never played. He said he's going to bring something a little bit different. He's trying to be disruptive, whether that's going to be after every point he's doing his big cheers or the big bombs and then mixing up the paces. I'm excited to see how that one plays out with Novak Djokovic. Of course, he's been there before. You'd expect him to be okay. And then on the women's, we spoke about the other semi-final, but today's one is awesome because we have Sabalenka, who has looked unstoppable this whole tournament. She's been the one who you don't see losing at all. And Madison Keys, someone who I predicted to go all the way to the final. She's got a good Grand Slam pedigree in her career, and I'm interested to see how she fares. So let's start off with the men's before we get into the women's, because they're equally exciting. And I want to bring up this tweet to begin with, and this is from Jose Morgado. It's him discussing the men's singles semi-final. So what we have, as I've already mentioned, Alcaraz, Medvedev, and then Shelton, Djokovic. So we've got the 1, 2, 3 and an unseeded player.
Yep.
And he's put the caption, the three best players in the world, plus the youngest man from the United States to reach the last four since 2005. We are good, huh? What do you think?
I think it's just super impressive that Shelton's managed to put his name amongst these like fantastic superstars, all slam winners, those three players, and he's in the mix. And some might say he's had a slightly easier draw and that type of thing, but you can only beat who's put in front of you. And I think he's beaten those players impressively. I think Karatsev was one of the most impressive ones. He looks really good this tournament. And Shelton, sort of after he got past the second set, made it look easy. TFO, very difficult to play at the US Open. Beat him in 4 sets. I think that he's definitely warranted his place in the semi-final, and it's definitely not going to be the last semi-final that we see Ben Shelton in. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, I agree completely. We'll save that one for later on because I know we've already touched on that on our preview yesterday. Yep. So go check out our preview and prediction for Ben Shelton, Novak Djokovic. And on the women's, who was it again on the women's?
What, for the semi-final?
Yeah,
we got Coco Gauff versus Muchova.
And Muchova. Yeah, so we did Coco Gauff, Muchova yesterday with Ben Shelton, Djokovic. Today we're going to focus on Alcaraz, Medvedev, and Saba Keys. So let's begin with this tweet here, and this is Alcaraz and how he's performed this year. So 2023 wins 58, 6 losses, 91%. Career win-loss of 148-37. But in Grand Slams this year is even better. So he's performed better on the Grand Slam stage than on the rest of the tour. He's only lost 1 Grand Slam match and he's won 17, which is a 94% record. And career Grand Slam win-loss is now 41-8.
Wow. I mean, that is incredible. There's nothing that he can do that will amaze me anymore. Watching that Zverev match, I really think that he's just becoming the model, professional, great player that we knew he could be. And these stats are just backing it up. I only see this just becoming more and more wins and barely any losses. Then as soon as Djokovic disappears, who is going to be the one to challenge him? And Zverev said it in his post-match press conference. He said, it's just those two. Everybody else needs to step up their game because they're levels above everybody else at the moment. And he would have needed to have had a much easier match against Yannick Sinner to even be able to be fit enough to compete with Carlos Alcaraz, and that's credit to Alcaraz. And I don't even think Alcaraz was playing his best, but
No.
that just shows how good he is.
Well, we need to talk about that quarterfinal. Alcaraz demolished Zverev 6-3, 6-2, 6-4. Before the match, Zverev was complaining why everyone's talking about the final of Alcaraz Djokovic. He's like, show some respect to the other players in the draw. Now he's done a full circle and he's saying that these two are in their own league. So you can't have it both ways, Sasha Zverev. I mean, you've got to understand these two are better than everyone. You're going to have to catch up with the tour. I know he's saying that in hindsight, but before that, he's complaining that everyone's talking about just them two, and he feels like he should have been spoke about more. So
True.
It's a bit of a contradiction, and everyone's going to have to try and catch up because at the moment in the tour, it's very clear what there is. You've got Alcaraz and Djokovic in their own league completely. Medvedev is a third best player in the world, and then I don't think there's anyone really in between, and that's why we're going to see probably the 1, 2, 3 in a lot of the semi-finals of slams. The interesting perspective is just where Daniel Medvedev falls in the draw. If he falls on Djokovic's side, we then get a tough semi-final. On the Alcaraz side, so far it's not going to be tough because Alcaraz is so much better than Medvedev in that matchup. What does Medvedev have to do different? I mean, everything. He has to completely find a different game style, another game plan, because the ones he's used so far up to this date have not worked against Carlos Alcaraz at all. And I think what we're going to be looking for in the next few years with the draws is where's Medvedev going to fall? Unless he can find a way to overcome the beast in Carlos Alcaraz. And he simply is a beast. I mean, he was asked what's changed most about him since last year's US Open. And his response was, I think I'm more mature. I grew up a lot since last year. Last year I was facing my first semi-final of a Grand Slam, which is crazy to think. Now he's facing his fourth one. I feel like I'm a totally different player. I deal with the pressure. I feel like I'm different. And do you believe he's different?
Yes, I do. I believe he's much improved, and that is saying something. Considering he won the US Open last year, looking at him in last night's match against Zverev, he looked unplayable at times, and that was only in the big moments, and that's what makes a great player. You don't have to play great for the whole match, but in the big moments you step up. And he just said, I try to just think of this as any other point and just play aggressive, and that's how I get through those big moments. And it goes to show he's built a big point mentality at such a young age. Not many people can do that, and I'm super impressed. And what's Daniel Medvedev going to be able to do to stop him? That's the big question. And Medvedev, he said in his post-match press conference after the win against Rublev that he still believes he can win, which I like. He said, I'm going to have to change a lot of stuff and I'm going to have to really give it my all, but I still believe that I can beat him. He says, tennis is a funny game. Anyone can beat anyone at any given time, and there's no reason that if he has a bit of luck and if the ball hits the net cord and goes onto the other side for a change, like a little bit of luck is what Daniel Medvedev needs in this match, I think, just to help sway it in his favour in a couple of big moments. And then we might see something different. We might see Carlos Alcaraz. He has a dip in third sets, Carlos Alcaraz. So if he does that against Medvedev in this crazy hot conditions, Medvedev's gas tank is very, very vast, as we know.
Yeah, I actually disagree with you in a lot of what you said. I don't think luck will be enough. I don't think the tennis gods or him getting good, lucky net cords is going to make a difference. I think even if Medvedev was to get that, there's still such a gaping difference in the two of them at the moment. The two contrasting styles will not help. It just doesn't help Medvedev. I don't know what. I don't know. I don't think it is just the power. I feel it's the movement and the versatility of a Carlos Alcaraz against a Medvedev who's very consistent. We'll have to study it a lot more. I'm no analytical genius when it comes to tennis matches, but I am fascinated to see if he mixes something up because he's going to have to. Because Alcaraz, in the previous meetings, it's been one of the most one-sided matchup I've ever seen. And I've been really shocked to see it because Medvedev's the third best player in the world. There's no doubts about that in my mind. And this one on paper should be competitive. So you never know. Maybe he's going to turn the corner. I'd love for it to be competitive. I think this is going to be the best matchup we've seen between the two of them. But I only see it really going one way. Let's move on to Daniil Medvedev. Of course, he played fellow Russian Andrei Rublev, someone who he's got the better of most times in his career. And the conditions were extremely tough. And I think the conditions is what dominated the match. Medvedev won in straight sets. Rublev had breaks in the set. He could have won all of the sets, really, but ended up losing them all. And I think this is the story of Rublev. I feel it's happened before, maybe against Thiem or someone else, where he's been in a situation where he could have won all the sets and lost them all. I think even against Daniil Medvedev, it's happened, maybe at the Australian Open one time. And it's just continuously repeating itself. Never been to a semi-final of a Grand Slam. Someone of his ability should be there. But the conditions were really tough for both players. So it's not just unfair on Rublev. And a quote from Medvedev, which is stealing the headlines, is one player is going to die and they're going to see.
I mean, it's scary to think. I mean, I saw how Rublev was reacting when he went to the chair. Did you see on the changeover? Yeah. It was, I've not seen somebody in so much discomfort because of heat before. He's trying to get his top off. He was pouring water on his head. He called for the medical. I was like, what Medvedev's saying is legit.
Oh, no, it's a valid thing. Like Medvedev said, if he dropped a set, he would have gone off the court and had a cold shower. And potentially that could have made his body either seize up where he wouldn't be able to play, or he would have taken that decision because of the conditions. He said the only thing you compare it to in his whole career was when he played in China once, and it was similar there. So
true.
Let's just understand that it was incredibly difficult. But then look at Djokovic the other day. Rublev was saying in his post-match interview, and he just seemed normal against Taylor Fritz. And I think that
he still mentioned it, though.
He mentioned it, but still it highlights how good he is of a player. And Alcaraz, I mean, look at him. He seemed okay. Granted, it was a bit later on, maybe, and it helped him out. But this was real tough. But what I would always say on this is there's no advantage to either player because they're both playing in the same conditions at the same time. And I think it's tough, but it's tough for both of them equally. Do you think there needs to be some kind of legislation where players are should not be permitted to play? Should you think they could close the roof and maybe put some kind of air conditioning in play? How do you think they should deal with these situations? Medvedev even suggested when it reaches a certain temperature or humidity, they should change it to only best of 3. What do you think?
I think either that or you suspend play and then put it on a bit later. That's about the only other thing I can suggest, because I don't think it's safe players playing in conditions in such an intense sport. This isn't a team sport. This is a one-on-one sport where two players play for potentially 5 hours. Like, that's how crazy this is. Running around or even sitting for 5 hours in searing heat is dangerous. Running around and causing your heart to be going full pace for 5 hours is super dangerous. And we're going to see we've seen heat stroke from Rafa, heat stroke from Djokovic. Even the best players suffer from it. So these other players are going to need, I don't know, the same sort of level of thing. If that's not enough, like seeing two of the best players ever to play the game struggling with heat stroke on court, then who is going to be able to implement the change? Because Andrei Rublev, he should be the one speaking out. I mean, Daniil's the one speaking out here. Has Rublev released a statement as well?
Yeah, he's been talking about it as well and how challenging the conditions were. But he said at the end of the day, he was beaten by the better player and it was fair for both of them.
Yeah, it's fair.
And this is why I feel like it's one of them podcasts, but I don't really agree with you either on this. I know I've been agreeing with you a lot throughout the US Open, but this is another situation where I don't, and I'll always say it when I do. And the reason I don't is because, granted, Rafa, Djokovic have been through similar situations like this, but they still went out and played. They still did it. They still went the next day, the next round, and they still won their match most of the time. And I just think it's part of the sport. It's the same for both players. I don't see an unfair advantage. Granted, it's tough, but you
Is
just
it
fight.
dangerous though?
You fight in the situation you're provided. I mean, sport at times can be dangerous. That is the high level sport.
What
It's not
temperature
for the
should
weak. It's
what
not for the
temperature shouldn't
faint-hearted.
be
It's tough.
what temperature is the limit then? I mean,
Well,
there surely
that's not up for
has
me.
to
I
be.
don't know, but I feel like scientifically there must be some kind of doctor who is watching that. And I mean, if it did reach a certain level, they probably wouldn't be able to play the match. And I think that's totally fair. I think it should be at the discretion of a doctor. I don't think it was at the heats in which it was that unsafe. I mean,
I think it's humidity.
I think it was challenging and it was difficult. But this is top level sport we're talking about. I don't have that much sympathy. I think it's bad. I think it's hard. I think it's incredibly difficult. And you're talking from the perspective of the average Joe. Of course, it's tough for us to sit in this heat, but these are the top level athletes in the world. This is the very best. The top 10 players in the world. I mean, you've got to go through some kind of adversity in difficult times.
Yeah.
And what sport isn't dangerous at the top level? As a football player, you can go and break your leg and never play it again. With tennis, you can have bad injuries which will ruin your career. This is life. This is what top level sport is. And I'm not going into any combat sports here. I'm just talking about high level ball sports. But yeah, let's see what Medvedev then went on to say afterwards. And I know we touched on it a second ago. He was asked if he would like to see tennis change how it approaches extreme conditions. You've already voiced that you think maybe the match should have been postponed. Is that what you're saying?
If it gets to a temperature which is granted
but was it at
dangerous,
that temperature, would
no,
you say?
I don't think it was. I feel that this was just very, very... he was playing Daniel Medvedev, and it's just a nightmare. If you have long rallies, you want to be keeping them quick if it's hot, and you can't because it's Daniel Medvedev. And that's why Medvedev comes out on top in these situations. So if anything, even though Daniel's complaining, this actually benefits him in these type of conditions. So,
yeah, to a level. So he said, I'm not too sure what we can do. We can't stop the tournament for 4 days because then it basically ruins everything, TV, tickets, everything.
4 days.
Could we go to 3 sets when conditions are like this? Some guys wouldn't be happy. Maybe I'm going to finish my career. Nothing's going to happen. Then it's fine. I'm talking for nothing. The question is, if we don't want something to happen, then say, oh my God, Medvedev said this years ago, but I don't have the solution. So he's tackled it there in the fact that it's not an easy solution. There's not a simple answer here. And I think it's the way it should be is down to the discretion of the doctors, to the tournament organisers, to mitigate the risk of the heat and make sure that players are protected. I don't think anything they've done so far has passed that line. And I think that's all part and parcel of competitive sport at the top level.
Yeah, like you said, we've seen other players manage to get through it. So why would we stop it just because of a select 1 or 2?
Well, I mean, they did as well. Let's move on to Andrei Rublev. Of course, he was the guy at the other end of this very difficult match in the conditions. And Daniel Medvedev, who was playing very good tennis, by the way, he was saying after the first set, because of the conditions, he couldn't see properly, because of the sweat in his eyes. And he was just going through the motions of how he envisions the tennis to be played, but he couldn't clearly see. It was still enough, and he played very well, by the way. But these are the players now Rublev's lost to, because the big talking point now is that Rublev, another quarterfinal, he's been kicked out. I know you did a funny meme. Go check that out on Twitter. Ben did a meme of Rublev and Pegula, another one who's not been to a semi-final of a Grand Slam. They've had chances. I would say Pegula's had easier chances and not done it. Rublev, though, are we being harsh on him? These are the players he's played in the quarterfinals. Nadal on hard, Medvedev on hard, Tsitsipas on clay, Medvedev on hard, Cilic on clay, TFO on hard, Djokovic on hard, Djokovic on grass, and Medvedev on hard.
Do you know what all this highlights to me is? This highlights that he's not doing well enough during the whole rest of the year so that he can get into the top 4 seeds, so that he can not meet Medvedev in a quarterfinal, because that's where he struggles. So maybe he needs to just do a bit better throughout the whole year, and he won't be seeded 5 to 8, and then he won't go out in the quarterfinals. Simple.
But then he'll go out in the semi-finals, you're saying?
Possible.
And is that much better? I mean, I think what you've got to do, if you want to win the big tournaments, that's kind of irrelevant, what you're saying. I understand what you're saying in principle to get through the quarterfinals, yeah.
But break the duck.
To actually try and win something, which is the end goal, he's going to have to beat one of the top players anyway. You're not going to win a Grand Slam without beating some of the best players. So clearly his issue is not just that he's not highly ranked, it's the fact that he can't handle any of the big guys. Nadal, Medvedev, Tsitsipas at times, and Djokovic.
And I'm sure Alcaraz as well.
I don't think that's actually happened, but I mean, Alcaraz would be in the same boat, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So he's had some tough matches. Probably the only one I feel was winnable there was the Cilic one on clay. I don't know if you remember it at Roland Garros. It went to 5 sets.
5, wasn't it? Yeah.
And Cilic won in a tie break. So it was very, very tight. And it was a crushing defeat for him. But Rublev needs to do a little better in these situations. Let's move away from the men's now and speak about the women. So we've spoke about Coco Gauff yesterday in the semi-final. The other semi-final has Sabalenka and Madison Keys. Saba, we covered her on the live watch-along. Keys, we've not really covered too much of, but she's been incredible. And just reflecting on the quarterfinals in general, I know you joked about on the live watch-along, but every single quarterfinal, the first set went to 5-love.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Or more. I mean, there was bagels in most of them, but this one just went 5-love. But they all got to 5-love in the first set of every quarterfinal on the women's.
For me, that's terrible. If we're getting to the quarterfinals, we've got to be having more competitive matches than that. I mean, for me, I'll forgive Kim Wen-jeng her one because it's her first ever quarterfinal. But the rest, I mean, I want better from you. I thought it was poor.
You don't forgive her?
Not really. I feel that she played great against Bencic. What happened? She just forgot how to play against Mukova. So, yeah, no sympathy for the others. I feel that it's just a little bit embarrassing. The Ostapenko one was the worst one. I feel that was... She came in great form, just looked terrible. So there's no excuses. And I feel that all they've done is let down themselves and they've let down the fans, the paying fans who went to watch like competitive matches. Quarterfinals should be where it really starts hotting up, and it just didn't at all.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. It's bizarre, really, that we're seeing so many one-sided matches on the quarterfinals of the women's stage at the US Open. Maybe that's probably why, because the US Open does throw up more surprises than the other slams. We'll speak about Sabalenka first. And, I mean, there's not much to talk about with all of her route because it just seems so one-sided. Like, every single Saba match, we've not covered much, we've not spoke about her too much, has just been so easy up to this point. Like, I don't think I've recalled a situation where she's been in doubt or things aren't looking good for her, or she might go out or lose a set. She just looks better than everyone. And there's not really much more to say apart from that. She's just done what Iga did last year. She's the new world #1, and she's outplayed everyone. At times, I've watched her on the court, and she's looked a bit wobbly, but she's always got like a break or a double break cushion when this is happening. So there's never been any cause for concern. So the thing I really want to talk about with her was actually in the press conference. And it's a funny Saba moment. I think when a player is so good, we can talk about her tennis and all the crazy stats. I was going to bring up some of them. But let's save that maybe for the next episode because we've got plenty of funny Saba moments. And she's been engaging with the crowd on the court, dancing, talking to them, saying about are you entertained with me? Do you like me? She's a very funny character. And in the press conference, there was someone clicking their pen in and out. And her response to it was, are you trying to test me? I'm older. I'm not getting annoyed by this. And then when he stopped clicking the pen, she went back to him and was like, oh, you can continue. It's okay. I'm used to it now. I'm older. It doesn't bother me. I'm unfazed. And he was obviously so rattled by it. Oh, he stopped. He's probably embarrassed. What do you make of Pengate?
Well, I like that she called it out anyway, because I like it when any of these players make the journalists feel uncomfortable in any way. I thought it was funny
Yeah.
when
You do thrive on that, don't you?
Pagula calling out the tennis podcast. That made me chuckle to myself to watch them squirming in their seats. But then this one, I feel that Saba just likes to have a bit of a laugh as well. So I really like her personality. I think she's a great for the sport, great world number one. So that's the main thing. Main takeaway is I think you've got to have a bit of fun in those press conferences, because think how many they do and think how boring some of them have got to be. So that probably brought a little bit of fun to, like, they don't get asked interesting questions at all. So if anything, that made that press conference interesting. Because her matches haven't been that interesting. She's been too good, and everybody else is subpar in comparison.
And a few words about her tennis so far up to this stage.
Brilliant.
The favourite?
Yes, I would say so. I'd say that no one's even looked close to even tackling her big shots. As soon as she hits a big shot, they can't even get it back in the court. It just goes long most of the time. So it's very uncompetitive. I'm hoping Madison Keys will give her a run for her money, but Madison Keys has to really come out the traps and take the game to her, because if she doesn't, she's going to be on the chopping block.
Well, we've got to remember this. Madison Keys has good Grand Slam pedigree. This is her 6th semi-final, and there's only 5 active players who have reached more than Keys, and that's Venus Williams, Azarenka, Wozniacki, who's now back, Kvitova, and her next opponent, Sabalenka. So, incredible how many she's been able to achieve. I guess it's not that much of a surprise, and maybe it was just a really good pick from me, and not one that's that shocking, because she's been here many times before. She's got to the final, I think it's the next one. Is it 2018?
2017.
2017, but it's her first US Open semi-final since 2018. So she got to the semi-final the year after that. She's got pedigree here at the US Open. Is she the one who, I know we're saying Saba's impressed, but is she the one to beat? Is she the American to beat over Coco Gauff? Has she been more impressive than Coco? Because I think she has been.
I feel that the style of her wins has been more impressive. I wouldn't even say that the Coco's win against Ostapenko was that impressive. I thought she just did a job, and Ostapenko let herself down. I think Keys takes the match to people. She blitzes them, and when she's playing well, she's nearly impossible to play. And she does well in the third set as well. So we're speaking about Gauff doing well in the third set. She definitely does well in the third set. She comes back and does her best in third set. So I think she's dangerous. And I think that we're finally going to get a good match for Sabalenka. And I'm hoping the crowd can play a bit of a factor. And I hope they don't turn on Sabalenka too much. But I've got a feeling they might.
Yeah. So let's have a look at some of the Madison Keys stats. You can see some of the semi-finals she's been to, 2 at the Australian Open, 1 at Roland Garros in 2018, 1 at the US Open, and of course the best was the final in 2017, in which Sloane Stephens defeated her in the final 6-3, 6-love, which was a bit crazy at the time. She's had a good year, I guess, with a quarter-final already at Wimbledon. Is she going to go better? She's already gone 1 better. Is she going to get to another final and get her to her best? I think it's possible, man. I really do. I have her in the semi-final playing Sabalenka in my bracket, and I have Sabalenka losing. So let's wait and see what happens there. But I thought it was good to highlight this, that she is a pretty consistent player across all the surfaces, and she's got pedigree. She's been on the tour for some time, sort of 2012, 2013 mainly, when she started breaking through. And she could be super dangerous. Let's get into the predictions, and we'll maybe start with the women, seeing as we've just finished talking about it. And I'll let you go first for a change.
Yes, well, with this one, like you were saying, amazing pedigree across all of the slams is Madison Keys. But the one thing Saba has in her advantage is she's been amazing across all the slams this year. She won the Australian Open, semi-finals at the French, semi-finals at Wimbledon, semi-finals again at the US Open. She's the most informed player on tour. She's the new world number 1, and she's playing without all the double faults. I feel that she's going to win. but I feel that there will be the first Sabre wobble in this match, and
Definitely.
it's going to be in the second set. She's going to lose the second set, but she's going to win the third, and it's going to be on a tie break.
What we agree on is there's going to be a Sabre wobble, and I can put a lot of money on it. I'm confident at one point we are going to see Sabre stretched. It's a semi-final of a slam. It's her worst possible scenario. I think she's probably worse in a semi-final of a slam than a final. I find her being the anticipation of being so close to a Grand Slam final has been too much in the past. She's lost to lesser opposition in semi-finals. Pliskova, Wimbledon, Mukova recently. She's lost a lot of them. And did she lose to Raducanu in the semis as well?
No, I don't believe so. That was Leylah Fernandez that knocked her out, wasn't it?
Oh, sorry, Leylah Fernandez. Was that semi-finals though?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, another one. It's lesser opposition. Yeah. And she needs to get over this. I don't think she's quite there yet. And I think we're going to see a big wobble at one point, but she's quality. She will still be favourite despite the wobble. I'm having Madison Keys winning, though, in 3 sets. That's my prediction. I like it. I think maybe Sabre takes the first set and Keys forges a way back and wins the third convincingly.
Well, that's what she does best. 6-1 in the third or something like that.
So you've gone Sabre in 3. I've gone Keys in 3. Over to this one now. Take it away.
Yep. This one, I said it on a previous podcast and I'm going to say it again. What I'm seeing from Carlos Alcaraz right now is nothing short of amazing. Every time I watch him play...
Did you see him spinning the racket round?
Yeah. Every time I'm watching
him play... If you saw that happening while you was about to serve, what would you do?
I'll be like, well, I'm not going to be able to hit the next shot that comes back, probably. He's cranking it up. But all it makes me think is it's just re-emphasising the fact that, for me, this tournament, and people are going to jump on my back, he is the best player this tournament. No disrespect to Djokovic. I don't think Djokovic has served that well. I feel that he's done just enough to get past players. I feel that Alcaraz has looked impressive. Even though he dropped a set to Evans, I still think the overall body of work and the way he's dispatching players is more aggressive. It's more scary. And that's the one thing I'd say about Alcaraz this tournament. And I think it's going to be scary against Medvedev again. And I feel that he's going to beat him in straight sets again.
Would you agree that Medvedev's the third best player in the world?
Definitely.
Is he clear at third?
Yeah, definitely.
He's got to be, isn't he? Definitely. And these are probably his best conditions, maybe. Best slam, probably US Open. I know he's done better maybe at the Australian Open, but he's not won it like he has the US. It's interesting. It really is, because this is where you'd expect Daniil Medvedev to come to life. He loves this event. In the US hard court swing, the back end of the year as well. Everything's set up for him to be amazing. He's just demolished everyone. This should be a really tight match, but it's not been in the past. And Alcaraz is a beast. I mean, he's not human. He's insane. I've not seen a player as good as him coming through since Rafael Nadal. Of course, Rafa was better than both Federer and Djokovic in the early years. And I'm seeing a lot of similarities here with Alcaraz. He's just an absolute beast. And I agree with you. I think he's going to rip Medvedev apart and win in straight sets, which is not fair because it shouldn't happen like that. But Medvedev has the ability, if he does go down 2 sets, I'm not sure if he's going to have that same sort of willpower to fight to the end. He is someone who will always fight on a tennis court, but there's going to be that doubt creeping in. The conditions, he's already a bit angry about all the conditions as well. So that's going to he's going to be riled up. We're going to see maybe some funny Medvedev quotes, but I see it going one way, and that is Carlos Alcaraz to win in straight sets.
I'll finish off just by saying I'm going to re-emphasise. I know Gary was saying, that's a bit much, me going a bit big on Alcaraz. I still think if he stays injury-free, he could be holding all of the slams by this time next year.
It's not crazy at all, Ben. No. I know it's scary watching him.
So good.
The big thing you say is injury-free, and he's played a lot of tennis now. Let's see if his body can keep up, because it's not easy to do. The tour's a very challenging place to be, and we've seen a wobble at Roland Garros with him physically. I'm not sure if there may be another one in there soon because he's done a lot of tennis, and as much as he's not feeling the pressure, and a lot of that probably was more mental than physical, it prevented his physicality, but a lot of it started from the anxiety and his mental. He's got a lot to develop into. He's still a young boy. What's he, 20 years old still, Alcaraz? It's insane. So let's give it time. But there we go. That is our predictions. Let us know what you guys think to everything we've discussed on this episode. Make sure, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. It's been fun as always. I really do enjoy bringing these podcasts to you. So if you do enjoy it, let us know and we'll continue to do them, maybe outside of slams as well. But for now, we'll see you later. There's not many matches, is there? We've got some at midnight, I believe. So there's a little
semi-finals.
bit. Women's semi-finals at midnight. So we've got a bit of a break during the day. Go have a rest, have a little nap, and get ready for the women's semi-finals. Like and subscribe, and see you then. Vamos.